All right, everyone, video 7. All right, so again, this is part of a 11 video series on Jirav for practitioners. And up until now, we've actually covered quite a few things, the basics,
A lot of back-end things.
the back-end stuff. But more importantly, now we're going to see how custom tables are going to truly impact all that planning we did around the custom tables. Think about customer acquisition, think about bookings, think about
unit sales,
right? All of that kind of gets pumped into the assumptions in custom tables, because today we're going to be talking about revenue.
Yep. How it gets built out in the back end, and then I'm going to show you later on today about how it all rolls into your P&L, right?
Right. And so revenue, there's one way to do it, and yes, a lot of CPA firms accountants, we go ahead, we have a baseline number, and we slap on a CAGR, and we extrapolate that number out 5 years, and we call it revenue growth. But that's not how we do revenue modeling here at GrowthLab. No. And for you guys, you want to think about what are the drivers. Now, I know the word drivers can mean different things, especially in the world of Jirav, but what are those levers in the revenue numbers? Like we talked about, customer acquisition costs, right? That's number one. So where does that all come from? Well, it starts with marketing budgets usually. So you start with a marketing budget, you've got your customer acquisition cost, now you have your customers, now you have your products and your product stratification, product penetration, pricing, volume, etc. All of that rolls up into revenue, right, Corey?
All of it rolls up, and then there's some other things that we can do with Jirav to kind of help add another layer of detail onto that, right? Depending on the type of customer, whether you have seasonality adjustments to things like that, right? Or multi-week months.
Yep. Right? So that's why when we started the series, we start with some of the back-end stuff, custom tables, marketing budgets, customer acquisition, because if you just start, if you look at a P&L and you start with revenue first, you're not really telling the whole story, because there's so many things that drive revenue, even like headcount, right? If you are an enterprise sales operation, for example, well, guess what? It doesn't come down to just marketing budgets and CPC costs and advertising. It really comes down to how many heads do I have in my sales organization, and how have I organized my sales organization, right? You have national salespeople, regional salespeople, inside sales, and then let's not forget about customer success. Now you're seeing how the staffing, why we address the whole staffing part of Jirav in the 4th video, right? Because all of this rolls up into revenue. And now Corey and one of our team members, they're going to actually do a video.
Yep, we're going to walk through how to connect the custom tables to your actual P&L and how it kind of all gets flown together.
Cool, exciting. This is actually one of my favorite parts of Jirav, is the revenue.
Cool. Thanks, guys.
Hey, everyone. Thanks again for watching. If you're enjoying this, please do me a favor. Like it, comment, and subscribe. Appreciate it.
Today I'm going to be walking through the revenue model. Now, for a lot of the models that you're working with, most of it should probably have already been built in the custom tables. That's where you're building out the underlying details and assumptions tying up to the ending revenue numbers. Now, as you see on the screen in front of me, we have the direct sales custom table for this demo account. So you can see in this scenario, we have a customer that has the reps. Those reps have a ramp-up period. We have an average quota per rep. And depending on when they were hired and how long into their employment, they would have ramped up to full capacity, if you will. That ties down to the actual number, the actual MRR number down here. So there's obviously a million different ways that you can build up your revenue model, whether it's unit sales, whether it's productivity, production, just new customer growth, SaaS, MRR based, right? There's a million different ways, but a lot of it should have been built in your custom table. So if that's the case, I'm going to start there. Now, you already have your revenue number, right? We just need to tie it to your P&L. We talked about in one of the previous videos how the custom tables really live separate from your balance sheet and your P&L. So we've got the revenue number. All we need to do now is link it. The way we're going to do that is if we go over to the revenue tab. We're looking at all departments for context right now. I'm just going to go over to services revenue. It's a random account here, but just for example. Now this listing for your chart of accounts, this is going to mimic what's in QuickBooks / what you've already customized in the back-end setup right over here under chart of accounts. We've talked about chart of accounts and the listings in the previous video if you haven't done so already. I'm just going to use this services revenue account right now. I'm going to add a driver It's going to be a custom driver. I'm going to add it to the unassigned department. We do not want to add it to all departments because what's going to happen is you're going to have the same formula, the same driver done, in this case, 4 different times or 5 different times because that's how many departments you have. I would not recommend that, especially for revenue. Either do unassigned or pick an underlying department if you have one that it correlates to. I'm going to choose unassigned. In my input, all I'm going to do for the category is go down to custom tables. I'm going to pick that direct sales table, and then I'm going to go down here to new MRR direct sales. I'm going to do this month because I want the month that we are forecasting to relate to the month in which it is listed in the custom table, and sum. I'm going to save that. I'm going to do a constant times a constant of -1 because you need a second input, and that is the actual number. We're not building an assumption off that number. We are just taking that number at face value. I'm just going to save that, and you'll see very quickly that number begins to populate here. Now, let's say that you want to make changes to this number. You add another head, you sell more units, you get another customer. All of that work is going to be done in that custom table that you built it up in. Once you build it in that custom table or update it with whatever metric or assumption that you want, it's automatically going to flow into here. What we just did was simply make the link between the custom table and your actual P&L. If I go over to the reports or the dashboard, these are the numbers in this revenue tab that are going to be showing there. Now, let's say you want to go in a little bit more of a simplistic fashion. There's 2 other methods that you can build up to revenue. You can either do some form of growth rate. You can do growth on historicals. You can do some seasonality adjustments. You can just use a hard-coded number, right? Hard-coded is easy, as we talked about in the past. That has to be under the unassigned department. Click off unassigned. I'm just going to go to add revenue as an example for us today. You can see I have these blue rows that pop up because I'm under unassigned. And you can simply populate this by going under, let's say, 50,000 a month, right? 55,000 a month, 60,000 a month, right? You can obviously copy it and paste it forward, right? Note that that is not going to do anything. It's orange, so it is not saved. You're going to want to save those changes before you move on or go to another screen. They'll turn blue, and that's when you know you're solidified. Now, what we just did, what we looked at is we hard-coded this number, right? And you can always come back in and change that. But you notice we did 50, 55, 60. There's another way to do that as well. The other way to do that is to go a periodic growth. So I'm going to do a periodic growth, just as an example here for revenue. And this is a great example. You'll probably do some form of periodic growth in some of your model, whether that's revenue, COGS, OPEX. I'm going to do a periodic number increase, not a percentage. Increase by $5,000 every 1 month for the first increase period in forecast. In the base to grow, I'm going to do a constant, 50,000. Save that. And you'll see I did this on purpose with the 50,000. So 50,000 is going to be your base that it grows by. So as you noted, I used 50,000 as my starting seed value here and grew. You'll notice I picked 50,000 as my starting constant value. However, when you're looking at this number, you're seeing the 55. That constant value is starting as the baseline, right? So if you want this to say 50,000, it's a little funky, but you're going to have to actually map this back down as a constant of 45. Then you'll notice that these numbers actually tie out. You will have to note that this does perpetually grow, right? And by the end of a few years out, you're at 140, or even choose here 80 and 60 because we kept this flat line, right? So my point here is that you're going to have to really think about how this revenue is built. Don't be afraid to use hard-coded numbers. Don't be afraid to stack drivers. Just note that whatever you're doing, use some of the best practices that we've taught around how you actually label some of these drivers, because as you go into it, as you begin to stack drivers like we have here, it becomes confusing if all of your drivers just have periodic growth driver number X, right? Or growth on historical X, right? Use a common titling nomenclature. It'll help you and your analyst team 10 times over. Drop a note if you have any questions. Look forward to the next video together.
That was great. So thanks for watching. Please subscribe. Leave us some feedback. Also, check out our website, growthlabfinancial.com. Again, subscribe so you can be notified for the next one.